Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends on the journey of life, let me tell you about a mystery that has echoed through the corridors of time, a mystery that transcends the limits of human understanding. It is the mystery of the Alpha and the Omega. The concept of Alpha and Omega has always intrigued and fascinated those who seek to understand the mysteries of life. At its core, it represents the beginning and the end, two eternal markers that define the vast spectrum of existence. The Alpha is not merely the first letter of the Greek alphabet. It symbolizes the origin of all things, the first breath of creation, the moment when time and space began to take form. It stands as a reminder that everything in our universe, every galaxy, star, and planet, as well as every human soul, has a beginning, a source from which it emerged. And from that origin comes a purpose, a divine intention that spans across time and continues to shape the unfolding of life. The Alpha is the moment when all things were first imagined, when the Creator, through the power of will and vision, set the foundation of reality into motion. It is a force that exists beyond the boundaries of time and human understanding, and yet it is intimately woven into every moment of existence. When we reflect upon the Alpha, we are reminded that our lives are not the result of random chance or mere happenstance. From the smallest atom to the largest galaxy, everything has a place and a purpose. The Alpha is the divine spark that ignited the universe, a spark that continues to burn through every aspect of creation. It was the moment when the Creator looked upon the void and said, "Let there be light," bringing into existence the universe as we know it. This creative force, ever present and ever powerful, continues to shape the world, and everything we experience in life finds its roots in that beginning. It is the Alpha that reminds us of our purpose. The human experience in all its complexity is not a series of random events, but rather a journey that began in the Alpha, in the heart of creation itself. Each person, each life, has been carefully placed in the grand tapestry of the universe with its own unique role to play. It is a story that began before the world was formed, one that stretches into eternity and echoes through the corridors of time. In the Alpha, there is divine intention. This intention is not just limited to the grand design of the cosmos. It extends to every individual. Every life has been crafted with purpose, with intention, from the very moment of creation. The Alpha speaks to us in the quiet moments of reflection, urging us to look beyond our immediate circumstances and recognize that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. From the Alpha comes a sense of direction. It is easy to become lost in the busyness of life, to become consumed by the demands of the day and lose sight of the bigger picture. But when we pause and remember the Alpha, we are reminded that we are not adrift on a sea of uncertainty. We are part of a plan, a divine journey that stretches from the beginning of time to its ultimate fulfillment. In this, there is hope. There is assurance. The Alpha offers us a foundation upon which we can build our lives. Just as the universe was created with intention, so too can our lives be shaped by purpose. The Alpha is a call to action, an invitation to align ourselves with the divine order that set the world into motion. It is a reminder that we are not simply passing through life aimlessly, but that we are walking a path that has been set before us. Every step, every decision, every interaction is part of the greater narrative that began in the Alpha. And while we may not always understand the journey or see the way ahead, we can trust that the Alpha, the origin of all things, is guiding us. The Alpha is also a reminder of the infinite possibilities that exist within each of us. Just as the Creator spoke and the universe came into being, so too do we have the power to create. The Alpha is not just about looking back at the beginning of the world, but also looking forward, knowing that our own lives hold the potential to bring about change, growth, and transformation. It is through the Alpha that we can begin to shape our own futures, grounded in the understanding that we were created with the ability to do so. As we consider the Alpha, we also realize that it represents a deep connection to something eternal. It is a symbol that transcends time and space, reminding us that our lives, like the universe, have a beginning, but also an infinite potential that stretches beyond the limitations of our earthly existence. When we recognize the Alpha, we recognize that we are not bound by the limitations of time. Our lives, though finite in the context of the world, are part of a divine story that is eternal. We are invited into that story, called to play our part in a narrative that began before we were born and will continue long after we have left this world. To embrace the Alpha is to embrace our connection to the divine, to the eternal, and to the infinite possibilities that exist within us and within the universe itself. We are part of something greater than ourselves, and that realization gives our lives meaning and significance. The Alpha is more than just a concept. It is a truth that underlies all of creation. It is the beginning of everything, the spark that ignited the fire of existence, and it continues to burn through every moment of our lives. When we embrace the Alpha, we understand that we are part of a grand design, a divine story that began before time and continues to unfold before us. The Alpha is a promise, a reminder that from the very beginning we have been part of something bigger than ourselves. Our lives are not random, our journeys not without purpose. In the Alpha we find our origin, and through it we find our place in the grand story of creation. The Alpha and Omega represent the eternal nature of God, transcending the bounds of time and space. These two symbols, when understood together, speak of a reality that exists beyond the limitations of our earthly experiences. The Alpha, as the first letter of the Greek alphabet, is often seen as the beginning, the start of all things, while the Omega represents the end, the culmination, and the fulfillment of all things. But there is a deeper mystery to these symbols. They are not merely markers of time, but representations of the eternal nature of God Himself. From the very beginning, God has existed outside the confines of time. He is not bound by the linear progression that we experience. For us, time is a series of moments, one after another. But for God, time is a creation. He exists beyond. He is the Alpha, the beginning, and the Omega, the end, but also the eternal present. God is not confined to past, present, or future. He is the eternal now. When we look at the concept of eternity through the lens of the Alpha and Omega, we understand that God is not subject to the same limitations that govern our lives. While we experience the passing of time, the unfolding of events in a sequence, and the changes that come with age, God remains unchanged. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. This eternal nature is both a source of comfort and awe. It means that no matter what we face in life, no matter how chaotic, painful, or uncertain the world may seem, we are held by an eternal God who is not swayed by the passing moments. The circumstances of life may shift and time may march on, but God remains steady, unchanging, and constant. In the mystery of the Alpha and Omega, we find an assurance that God is the ultimate reality, the one constant in a world full of change. The eternal nature of God also means that He is not confined to a single moment or experience. He is present in all things, at all times. He is with us in the beginning of our lives, at the center of every experience, and He is with us at the end of our journey. The Alpha and Omega remind us that God's presence is not bound by time. Whether we are in moments of joy or sorrow, in success or struggle, in growth or stagnation, God is present. His eternal nature assures us that He is not distant, but is intimately involved in every moment of our lives. This eternal nature of God invites us into a relationship that is not bound by the fleeting nature of time. We are not simply interacting with a God who existed in the past or will exist in the future. We are invited into an eternal relationship that transcends the confines of time. Our connection with God is not limited to a particular season of life or a single experience. It is an ongoing, continuous relationship that spans the entirety of existence. This truth is especially important when we consider the struggles and trials of life. In the midst of pain, loss, or hardship, it can be easy to feel as though time is working against us, that things will never change or improve. But the eternal nature of God reminds us that our struggles are not permanent. While time moves forward and we may experience moments of difficulty, God's eternal nature means that He has already seen the beginning and the end of our lives. He is present in our suffering and in our triumphs, and He will continue to guide us through every moment, no matter how long it takes. The eternal nature of God as reflected in the Alpha and Omega also invites us to live with a sense of hope and purpose. If God is eternal and unchanging, then our lives have an ultimate meaning that extends beyond the limitations of our earthly existence. We are not just drifting through time, subject to the whims of fate or chance. We are part of a grand narrative that is woven into the eternal story of God. Our lives have purpose because we are part of something greater than ourselves. The Alpha and Omega show us that from the beginning of creation there was a plan, and that plan continues to unfold. Our role in that plan is not insignificant. We are invited to participate in the eternal purposes of God, to be part of the story that spans eternity. This perspective shifts how we view our lives and the world around us. Instead of seeing time as something we must simply endure, we can view it as a canvas upon which we are invited to paint our story, knowing that our lives are part of the eternal story that God is telling. The mystery of the eternal nature of God also challenges us to think about the way we live. If we believe that God is eternal and unchanging, then how do we live in light of that truth? How do we live with the awareness that our lives are part of something greater, something eternal? This awareness should inspire us to live with intentionality, to make our time on earth count, not for fleeting things, but for things of eternal significance. The Alpha and Omega are a reminder that our time is precious, not because it is fleeting, but because it is part of an eternal story. In our daily lives, we are called to live with an awareness of the eternal, to live as if our choices, our actions, and our relationships have eternal consequences. The eternal nature of God invites us into a relationship that stretches beyond the temporal, and in that relationship we are invited to live with eternity in mind. The Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, reveal to us the eternal nature of God. He is the constant in the midst of a changing world. He is the one who was, is, and is to come. In Him we find a hope that does not fade, a presence that does not leave, and a purpose that is eternal. We are part of something bigger than ourselves, something that transcends time and space, and that truth should shape the way we live each day. The concept of purpose and destiny is intricately tied to the mystery of the Alpha and Omega. These two symbols, representing the beginning and the end, point to a deeper truth about the path we are all walking. Life is not a random series of events or mere coincidences. There is meaning, direction, and divine intention woven through every moment, guiding us from the Alpha to the Omega. From the moment of our creation, we are part of a divine plan. The Alpha speaks of the origin, the source from which we come, while the Omega represents the fulfillment, the end, the ultimate destination. These two markers help us understand that our lives are not aimless, but are part of a greater story that is unfolding, a story that includes us, each with our unique role to play. Purpose and destiny are not abstract concepts, but living realities, evident in our daily lives. From the very beginning, each individual has been crafted with intention. There is no such thing as an accidental life. We were all created with purpose, designed for a specific journey. Every step, every experience, every choice we make is part of the divine narrative that began before we were born and will continue long after. Even when we face difficulties or feel lost, the Alpha and Omega remind us that our lives have direction. The challenges we encounter are not obstacles to our destiny, but part of the refining process that shapes us for the journey ahead. The idea of destiny is not about an inevitable path that is fixed and unchangeable, but it is about being aligned with the purpose for which we were created. The path may not always be clear, and there will be moments of uncertainty, but the Alpha and Omega assure us that we are moving towards something meaningful, something designed specifically for us. Our lives are not random. They are written with purpose. There is a reason behind every encounter, every struggle, and every victory. The events that shape our lives are part of a greater plan that is unfolding, even when we can't see the full picture. This idea of purpose also means that every individual has been given unique gifts, talents, and strengths. These are not mere accidents, but part of the divine plan. We are equipped for the journey we are meant to take. Just as the Alpha is the beginning of all things, it is the starting point that carries with it the potential for everything that is to come. Likewise, The Omega is the fulfillment of all things. It is not an arbitrary ending, but a destination where everything that was meant to be comes into its fullness. Our destiny then is not just about reaching the end, but about becoming who we were always meant to be along the way. The journey from Alpha to Omega is one of growth, transformation, and fulfillment. The closer we align ourselves with the divine purpose, the more we begin to understand our true destiny. The mystery of the Alpha and Omega also speaks to the idea that our lives are part of a larger story, one that is far greater than ourselves. Our purpose is not isolated or self-centered, but part of a grand design that is connected to the lives of others, to the unfolding of history, and to the eternal purposes of God. The Alpha and Omega help us understand that our individual destinies are intertwined with a much larger divine narrative. And as we walk our paths, we are participating in a story that began before we were born and will continue long after. This larger story is a story of redemption, a story of hope, a story that ultimately points to the fulfillment of all things. Our purpose is intricately linked to this story, and as we walk from the Alpha to the Omega, we are being shaped, refined, and prepared to play our part in this unfolding drama. The journey of life is filled with twists and turns, moments of doubt, moments of joy, and moments of struggle. But the Alpha and Omega remind us that every part of the journey has meaning. The beginning and the end are not disconnected, but are part of a larger whole. Every season, every chapter, and every experience is part of our divine purpose. When we understand that our lives are moving toward a destination that is rooted in God's eternal plan, we can begin to live with greater intention and greater clarity. Knowing that we are part of something much larger helps us to focus on the things that matter most, to invest our time and energy in ways that align with our true purpose. The Alpha and Omega also remind us that there is a divine order, a rhythm to life that cannot be ignored. Just as the Alpha is the beginning of all things and the Omega is the fulfillment, we must trust that there is a timing to everything. Our destiny is not something that can be rushed or manipulated. It unfolds according to the divine plan. Sometimes we may want to move ahead to reach the Omega without understanding the process, but the Alpha and Omega remind us that there is wisdom in waiting. Trusting in the divine timing is part of walking out our destiny. There will be times when we feel as though we are not moving fast enough or making enough progress, but the Alpha and Omega teach us that every moment is part of the journey. Our destiny is not a destination that we rush to. It is a path that we walk step by step with purpose. As we walk this path, the Alpha and Omega teach us that we are not alone. We are guided by a higher power, one who has seen the beginning and the end, and who is with us every step of the way. Our destiny is not something we must figure out on our own. It is revealed to us in God's perfect timing. Trusting in that divine guidance allows us to walk with confidence, knowing that we are exactly where we need to be. The mystery of the Alpha and Omega is a call to embrace the purpose and destiny that God has placed within each of us. It is an invitation to live with intention, to trust in the unfolding journey, and to know that every step we take is part of a divine plan that leads us from the Alpha to the Omega. Faith and trust in the Alpha and Omega provide us with a foundation to navigate the uncertainties and challenges of life. These two symbols are not just markers of time, but representations of an unshakable reality that transcends our human experience. The Alpha is the beginning, the moment when all things came into being, and the Omega is the fulfillment, the ultimate completion of all things. Together, they reveal to us the nature of God as the eternal, unchanging force that governs the universe. The mystery of the Alpha and Omega invites us to place our trust in the one who has seen the beginning and knows the end. This faith is not blind or passive, but active, grounded in the assurance that God is both the author and the finisher of our lives. The Alpha and Omega assure us that the Creator who called the world into existence is the same God who is present with us in every moment of our journey. When we place our trust in Him, we acknowledge that our lives are not defined by random events or circumstances, but by a divine plan that is being carried out with perfect wisdom and love. Trusting in the Alpha and Omega means trusting that there is a purpose for every season of life, even those seasons of struggle and hardship. Life often presents us with moments of uncertainty where we cannot see the way forward, and the challenges we face seem insurmountable. In those moments, the Alpha and Omega are reminders that our lives are not defined by our immediate circumstances, but by the eternal story that is unfolding. We may not always understand why things happen the way they do, but we can trust that God, who has seen the beginning and knows the end, is working all things together for good. Faith in the Alpha and Omega allows us to face life's difficulties with hope and resilience. We can be confident that the challenges we face are not pointless, but are part of a larger plan that God is unfolding. Trusting in God's eternal nature means knowing that His purposes are far greater than our present struggles. The Alpha and Omega teach us that no matter how dark the present may seem, the end is already written in victory. Our faith in God's eternal nature strengthens us to persevere, even when the journey feels long and the way unclear. The Alpha and Omega also remind us that our faith is not based on temporary or fleeting things. In a world that constantly changes, we can place our trust in a God who is unchanging and eternal. Our faith is anchored in the one who exists beyond time and space, the one who was, is, and is to come. This gives us a sense of stability and security, knowing that the same God who created the universe is the same God who walks with us through every trial. When we trust in the Alpha and Omega, we are reminded that we are not walking this journey alone. The eternal God, who was there at the beginning of all things, is with us in every moment. His presence is constant, unwavering, and faithful. No matter what we face, we can take comfort in knowing that He is beside us, guiding us from the Alpha to the Omega. Faith in the Alpha and Omega invites us to let go of our need to control every aspect of our lives. When we trust in the one who is both the beginning and the end, we release the pressure to have all the answers or to understand every detail of our journey. Instead, we surrender to the unfolding process, knowing that the Creator is guiding us toward His perfect plan. Faith and trust in the Alpha and Omega are about resting in the knowledge that God has already seen the path ahead, and we can trust Him to lead us where we need to go. Our faith in the eternal nature of God also invites us to live with a sense of peace. In a world that is often marked by uncertainty and fear, the Alpha and Omega remind us that we do not need to be anxious about the future. God has already been there. The beginning and the end are in His hands, and He is with us in the present moment. This faith gives us peace because we know that no matter what happens, we are held by a God who is eternal, unchanging, and good. Trusting in the Alpha and Omega also challenges us to live with a sense of purpose and intentionality. If our lives are part of a divine story, faith in the Alpha and Omega calls us to walk in obedience to God's will, to trust that His plans for us are good, and to live with the knowledge that our lives have eternal significance. This trust enables us to make decisions not based on temporary circumstances, but based on the eternal truths of God's Word. As we place our faith in the Alpha and Omega, we also learn to trust in God's timing. In a world that values immediate results and quick fixes, the Alpha and Omega teach us that there is a divine rhythm and timing to everything. Trusting in God's timing means understanding that there are seasons of waiting, seasons of growth, and seasons of fulfillment. We do not need to rush ahead, or worry about what is to come, because we know that the one who holds the beginning and the end is also in control of the middle. The mystery of the Alpha and Omega is not just about the eternal nature of God, but also about the invitation to live by faith in the one who holds all things together. Trusting in the Alpha and Omega is an act of surrender, an acknowledgement that we are not in control, but that we serve a God who is. This trust is the foundation upon which we can live with hope, peace, and purpose, knowing that the God who created the universe is also the God who is guiding us from the beginning to the end. In conclusion, the mystery of the Alpha and Omega reminds us of God's eternal nature and His perfect, unchanging plan. From the beginning to the end, He is the author of all things, guiding our lives through every season, struggle, and triumph. His fulfillment is certain, and as we trust in His divine purpose, we find peace in knowing that we are part of a greater story that stretches beyond time. Embrace the journey with faith, for in the Alpha and Omega all things are brought together, and we are assured that God's plan will always prevail.